Hey, training plants every day. George Scope coming at you from the STEM lab. Okay, I went to bed pretty early last night. There was one more, at least one more video I wanted to do on this stuff, and it gets into the quantum mechanics homework of it all. But before I get too far into that stuff, um, there's a statement that I always like to say when I get through some of this material, or at least, well, seeing I put up 3 videos, that's 45 minutes. If this was an hour class, and in my direct physics model, um, for when I go to become a direct physics teacher, um, seeing that this is like $10 million worth of STEM and millennium problems, math problems you'll find on the internet. I've been studying these things for so many years. Is, when you get really good with this stuff, it becomes the model. Things like psychic ability is a reality. People, I usually sketch people out a little bit and think I'm a little crazy. When you get good with the numbers, when you get good with the physics, things get laying out. And we're talking about a lot more than just numbers here. This is direct physics. Body language is a number that you can pay attention to, and you get good at registering what's going on in the stone dock. You know where all the things are. So by watching somebody's biometrics, by watching somebody's mechanics, you can figure out what they're thinking a little bit more appropriately. And it goes way, way, way more into um, everything than you think. I let a lot slide sometimes because, honestly, it's not worth fighting it all the time. And there's always a spectrum game of sometimes it's not always lying or directly telling the truth, but usually when it's processing the information or somebody's having a reciprocal to the conversation with you, you can even tell a certain degree of how comfortable they are psychology wise. You can tell um, the way their attitude is, and you can position that into a group of spectrums of how well they do things to a certain degree, and how they carry themselves to a certain degree. And well, I just wanted to put that in there. Things like psychic ability, telekinesis, telepathy, those become real terms from the Mason's point of view. But remember, this is about mathematics. This isn't always about stoneworking. This isn't always about your mathematics skills. For me, all this stuff has something between the real heavy duty mathematics and in science and psychology. Those are terms that are made up. They're lying to you. They don't really exist. You won't see physics floating around, but you'll see planets floating around. You won't see air molecules directly. You'll see the mathematics that applies to them. And in that way, you're kind of somewhere in the middle of all this. So, that's why I like to say well-rounded. Um, and you'll be able to move mountains. You'll be able to really get what you want out of life, out of those motivational conversations, because you understand the physics, you understand the layouts, you understand the forms and the forces and the applied models that it's going to take, and you're going to have better quotes to tell the time about those kinds of aspects. Now, there's a lot of reality that goes into knowing that everything in the universe mathematically is preordained. There's this airflow problem and smoothness and all those other things, but dark matter calculations that go into this, antimatter calculations, degrees and spectrums, that when you get really good, not mathematically, I mean, that helps. It'll help you predict a lot of that stuff. It'll help you understand a lot of this stuff. It'll help you make better forms for that stuff, whether it be here or here on paper, which, those skills can double down into more states. Because I write a lot of these notes, somebody can trust me to make writing notes. Somebody can trust me to make scaled drawings and things like that. And that opens more fields to understanding, and that makes it a little quicker. And not only a little quicker, the percentageable aspect that more avenues are open to me, and therefore I have a greater chance of success. in whatever I choose it to be. But remember, this is a universal field theory. It's like a universal socket. It fits on everything. And you just go to your tool chest and you pull out right to the ratchet and right to the half-inch drive, and you go to town because you got all those tools. You got all that system. It's just not a single wrench that all it is a wrench turner. Or maybe a pry bar if you really need it to be. But I like to put that aspect in there. And I do this one on the other ones, but I wanted to describe it for this one when I'm talking about a lot of this stuff. You know, this was a form drawing of an equation that I wrote up, and you'll see it on my Facebook page. It's one I'm really proud of. You know, a lot of this stuff is stuff you'll see in the first few pages. Well, you need some of the writing parts of it, which, you know, if you read through a lot of this, which you'll find on my Facebook page, and you understand some of the general concepts of how I'm applying this, and everything has an X factor to it, has a Y factor to it. X is just regular physics. Y has, in a stone dock, you can get to physics and mathematics and science and business models and other things like that. And then you got Z factors like skill and determination and all those other things. But in the quantum game, there's a lot more going on to it, like you'll see in all those little math theories and things like that. And this page alone takes a really long time to go through and work somebody's zeros and ones out for them, and help them understand that A is a capital form, A is a lowercase form, it can be A, it can be causal, it can be an X function, it can be a Y function, it can be a C function. And you just, what I like to do here is just hammer that home, you know, just repetition, like you'll see in a lot of my terms that talk about a lot of the same things over and over and over again. We generalize them, then we put them in a specialized state, and then we apply them directly to you. And the phase equation is force at acceleration at causal energies for a phase equation, or how you choose to face the world, how you choose to look at the world, how you choose to break down whatever forces F1 into F2 into, you know, because I might look at the same conversation and say, well, that'll diverge a different way because of a certain percentage or a certain number that goes into whatever this outside world, not necessarily this planet hitting this other planet, but this air molecule. There's a lot of numbers that go into that. It's very clear. It's very dark in the way that the numbers are viewed and how they're seen and understood in the quantum mechanics and quantum gravities and all that other stuff here. But what I like to describe this as is, again, a general sentence or a general second, and that second could be talking about terms. We could say that that's psychology and the stone dock. We could say that's mathematics and physics. We could say that that's anything, whether it be the general Big Bang version of it or actually determining this second right now and how that momentum will carry down into the next second, given at the end of all this, you know, this is a part of an equation you'll see in general relativity, and it condenses down to all that. Axis is a one-dimensional ones and zeros and things like that build but stay, you know, no matter how many ones and zeros you have, it's still in the 1 and 0 field. The y-axis is one dimension of a two-dimensional Euclidean frame. So Euclidean means that they're individual field theories. It's landscaping and it's carpentry or stonemasonry and sawyers. You know, those are those two things. When you put those two together and you move them downrange, you're going to move as a person with those skills. You're going to talk about those skills very heavily, and you're going to form states that apply to that example. Now, again, this still takes place in 3 dimensions, and it has singular aspects. You're talking about it in 1 second, or 1 hour, or 1 minute, and 1 day, X, Y, Z. The z-axis is 2 frames of Euclidean space-time in irrational, non-Newtonian. It means it's not moving. We have the opportunity to stop the clock for a moment in these kinds of aspects, mathematically, scientifically. We have the cutoff when we know, even though the flow dynamics of the saw and how much water flows over it, that's just a small piece of the reality of all the calculations that are infinitely entangled all together to a four-dimensional, a mechanical four-dimensional time, or dimensional Euclidean time space. So again, we're cutting off that into this time with those terms and those examples. And obviously there's more than two frames of Euclidean states, and even if there was two frames, how many things at the quantum universe infinitely travel down through those terms to just 0 point mathematics and infinitely the other way to how many things that could apply to, but we just generalized it. And that's the stuff you'll see in general relativity. But some of this stuff is stuff you'll find in special relativity as well. And I just designed and invented this equation to go with this to help apply some of the ways of thinking you'll need when we get into the farther states, of forms and technologies that can be made to understand these things. And it's about inventing, it's about practicing, it's about, just being well-rounded and bettering yourself in as many skills as you think you need to have. It's not that any one skill can't be useful to a certain degree in any other skill, but the more skills you have, the more apt you're going to be ready to handle anything. Just here in the Stone Dock, I used those skills to a lot of other resumes. I know it helped me get a lot of jobs because I had those skills, not just because I was strong, but because I could do forms, because I knew time systems, because I knew all those other variables, and I could just cut those off to any two and say, well, that works to the saw, that works to thermaling, that works to rock facing and other things like that. And they just infinitely travel with those mathematical concepts in mind. I wish I had time to do the Aristotle and common sense physics one in here too. That one's really good. I don't want to overdo it because it gets. This is an 8-year study. It should take you about. Not that you couldn't do this whole entire book in a couple of days if you really put yourself to it. But really, it takes about a year. And any one page, any one mathematical concept could take you up to an 8-year study. We're talking about PhDs and doctorates in business, economics, mathematics, physics, and it's all there. Psychology, and making yourself marshmallow experiments and scientific principles and all those things, or cracking a single scientific principle in the principles or concepts of quantum mechanics. Think how much you would need to do to say something that really explains what one of those principles are, let alone all of them. But here's that given second. It could be me in the Stone Dock. It could be me talking about the psychology in the Stone Dock. But it carries a lot of momentum into this next half second. I can generally predict what's going to happen in that next second. Or even I could say, from where I'm standing right now, here's an infinite number of principles that I could create to say that's what it was in its general form. And here it's about electrons and photons and when you're thinking about those kinds of numbers, but it can be way more than that. Einstein, we knew he had a lot of quotes and stuff like that about psychology, and it helps you motivate your thinking and all that other stuff, which is an important part. It's going to be a very heavy-duty feature in understanding what's going on here. A lot of critics use it to say that's why I'll tear him down. Well, there's a little bit of everything and everything, and you got to be able to tap into that, both sides of the fence. I can't say that all his work was correct. I changed it. This is my generalized, special generalizing relativity or simultaneous relativity of how it applies, but we get into the quantum mechanics game of it all. From here, we're just looking at the dimensions that would apply into, special dimensions and other things that are going to go beyond calculus and other things, and then the carry through momentum of those ideas and what have you. So I'm running out of time. Any questions, like, comment, subscribe. Catch you on the next one.